We're here with Zeba Padinjare, who has just won first prize in the Christopher Tower Poetry Competition. Congratulations, Zeba.
Thank you.
How are you feeling, dare I ask?
Feeling good. Yeah.
That's really lovely. It was a stunning poem. I mean, the judges, when we met to talk about the poem, we absolutely loved this, and we were in absolutely no doubt about what our feelings were towards it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very unusual poem, and one of the ways it's unusual is its form, because it takes the form of a form, does it not? Can you tell us a little bit about your poem, which is called Application?
Yeah. Well, I'd had to complete a lot of applications, usually like for the Schengen visa, which I mentioned, to go to Europe. And I was growing really frustrated with what seemed like inane details in order to just kind of almost just add friction, it seemed, in order to move anywhere. And uh, this was kind of like one of the lighter applications you could even complete, like for people having to move or even seek asylum. Like I figured it becomes so much worse when it's life or death. But yeah, this comes from my own frustration of having to, for example, confirm whether I was of good standing and so on. But yeah.
But there's a way in which it seems to me your poem brilliantly takes the idea of what is an actual interrogation of the applicant into a kind of interrogation of your own about the question process and the people or the society that's asking questions of this kind. And so some of the material in this poem is presumably partly from experience of what you've actually seen written down, and some of it is presumably a creative invention that you put together. Is that a difficult mix to bring together what's quote unquote factual and what you've also decided to employ in a creative way?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it comes down to like what I think, what is most relevant of like what's factual to me, because a lot of it, most of it, is a factual, um, and just kind of cut up a bit for what's most stark. Like I had cut out a lot of what other questions they would use, but I don't think it was too difficult. I just had to move away from what I would want to see rather than just everything I had seen as well.
I mean, that you talk about the cut-ups. That's quite interesting because there are moments in this poem where it's pure officious, and then there are other moments in the poem where it becomes almost like a creative fantasy at moments where you think, well, some other kind of life is being explored and expressed there. And there seems to be a wonderful image of ladders that you have running through the poem. Can you say something about ladders and what they might suggest?
Well, they're precarious. Your synonym is precarious, and when I mentioned that below you you have an unpersoned step, but above you you could have a paperless world, it's a little bit about how there are lots of different situations in which people could no longer have to deal with papers or documents or like live beyond them. Um, but we've ended up in a strange midway step where everyone has to be documented so thoroughly, and everyone has to almost, those documents seem to have more worth than them. Whereas either you lose your documents, you're considered like an undocumented immigrant and so on, or whereas we could be living without all of this. And so we've ended up, it seems, like halfway between deciding whether to let people move or not. Yeah.
And that documentation, as you say, which is so invasive and so decisive in so many people's lives. Here it becomes very, very moving in the way you put together the poems, it seemed to us when we were reading it. And there's great power in the way that you've often kept your own emotions as a writer. Um, on the level of this poem, you didn't ask any readers to lean in and feel any sympathy in that question. You just wrote it so beautifully exacting that it was impossible not to be moved by this poem. And that seems to be an artful skill that we were so impressed with. Can you say a little bit about your background in writing? I mean, how long have you been writing poetry of this kind?
Maybe a few years. I especially benefited from like attending poetry workshops sometimes, or like discussing it with my sister. Um, but yeah, especially my English teacher had pushed us towards this competition in particular. So although I'd been writing on my own, like getting to discuss it with my friends in school and all of us talking about how, what on earth could you write for a riddle, I think that was a final push for this one. But I'd been writing for a couple of years.
That's so interesting also what you say about the neighborhood of the poem and the constituency, the people that you spoke to, because I think that's a real reminder, isn't it, that poetry is of a community and for a community too. And I think that's something that this poem does extremely importantly, because this is a very social poem and it is a poem for community in the greater sense of it. And we, as I say, we were terribly moved by that. And it seems that to us that not only have you done a great service to poetry, but you've done a great service to community in writing a poem like this and sharing it with us. And in fact, I wondered if you would possibly share it with us, Zeba, now. And I wonder if you'd be willing to read your poem for us now.
Yes, thank you. All right. This is an application. In order to be a blank blank, the applicant requires A. Documents. B. To be a person of good standing. C. To stand well in a queue. D. To know 2 people of good standing, who are blank blank themselves. F. To not have committed any war crimes as per the 1949 Geneva Conventions, here or abroad. G. £1,500. H. To know that money swam to the country, this country, the company, from the applicants years ago, and that it may be sensible to be confirmed as having followed. I. To not punch a malfunctioning printer when given ample opportunity and reason to do so. J. A desire to stop having to complete the suspenseful experience known as a Schengen visa, for which the following are required. I. Chronically camping out on the visa appointments page. II. A minimum of 6 hours. III. The patience of a saint or a migrant. IV. Documents. V. People coordinated at home to send PDFs of documents not previously mentioned as required. K. To be. I. At the very least, wishing to live easier in our drawn and quartered world. II. Standing halfway up the ladder of existing, with the paperless unpersoned step below, but without the borderless world populated by paperless people above, and so is on a material level shockingly dependent on A4 and its digital cousins. A successful applicant who is now a blank blank is therefore part of the 3% of the world who, upon rotating globe, gets to stick a paperwork pin in to confirm, part of an even smaller percentage whose passport morphs strangely from black to blue as though sustaining water damage from transitioning from the coastal nation the applicant has never lived in to the island nation they do. Thank you.
Zeba Padinjare, thank you very much indeed, and congratulations.
Thank you.